All right, welcome everybody to the comic panel. I'm Cody.
And I'm Tailon.
I'm Jacob.
And I'm Shawenta.
And today we are talking about Hip Hop Family Tree, written and drawn by Ed Piskor. So this book is basically a history of the early years, the origins of hip hop. And this is volume 1. There is actually multiple volumes that go into, the later years.
Yeah, what years was this one?
It was like the mid 70s to early 80s.
Yeah, I think it's like
75 to 81, something like that.
Yeah, and on the first page it actually says mid 1970s, so it doesn't quite give a year, but 74, 75, and then ends around like 81, I think. So yeah, like 5 to 6 years. Yeah.
Which most of my hip hop taste is not part of that time frame.
yeah, definitely. I like there's certain names and songs that I was like, yeah, I recognize that a little bit, but then like a bunch of other people where I was like, I've never heard of you in my life. So that was kind of
it's history in the sense of like it has a bunch of different people within the cast, right? A lot of different artists.
Well, it tells the history of the emergence of hip hop.
Yeah.
There's no one main character.
Right. Yeah. It's a very like zoomed out look.
Yeah. And it's more like leading up to the first like nationally recognized, like when hip hop became nationally recognized.
Yeah. The mainstreamification.
Yeah.
Of hip hop.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was like kind of interesting to me, at least the just how it was like very just street parties that were, just for locals in the neighborhood and stuff like that. And also I really actually liked the way that they depicted Bambaataa. Because he was like a leader of a gang, but basically saw a way to like steer the youth in his neighborhood towards like a more like positive
expression
expression.
Positive outlet.
And that was just like cool, but also like still being like realistic, of course, because this is what really happened, but realistic to the regular violence and stuff in their neighborhoods at the time.
The idea of like hiring somebody who's hiring a gang to protect you from like random stick-ups.
Because you were working with really expensive equipment to be a DJ. And I think it said like it started off with like the certain kind of songs that you play in the background. I can't remember exactly. It was like what made a good party, right?
The breaks, the music breaks where it was like because you'd have like say a jazz or disco song, and then when people really start dancing is when the singer stops, and it's like the beats, and so the musical breaks. Somebody just bought 2 records and then, played them back to back.
And so it started off with that, and then it became like the bass, or I can't remember. Man, I really wish I remembered some of the details more, but it was like the bass or something like that that became like, oh, that was the thing. That was cool.
Yeah. I mean, that's what, like, it was about how loud you could get, the decibels.
Yes.
That's what it was. They're like, it's not really about the music or the song. Just get it loud.
Yeah. And then, just evolution from there, more and more, changes, the introduction of an MC, having a DJ and an MC basically, so that one person can like control the records and the other person can talk to the crowd. And then from there, the evolution of the MCs starting to do rhymes and raps over the music rather than just like pumping up the crowd. There's like, yeah, we can like, you know, kind of almost make music on top of this music, you know, lyrics.
And then you start getting record labels involved. And it's like, oh, we could put rap on top of music. Mind-blowing. Yeah, and make money on it. Yeah. Which is crazy to me because Rapper's Delight is by the Sugarhill Gang, which is heavily in this comic. And just listening to that song without the context of when it came out, and he starts off like he rapping, and then he says, "What you heard is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat." And it's like you don't realize, oh, that was actually new when that came out. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. And to give a little bit more context, that Rapper's Delight was a song that was put on an album that was a parody of the Night Before Christmas.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see that connection before. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, there's a low bar for Christmas music, but it sells a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, they're all...
It was fun to see how like entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Like even in the beginning, they have where they don't have proper speakers, so they're using like milk crates. And then what is it with the power outage?
Oh yeah,
the blackout, I should say.
And
it's like.
I liked how it was like very unclear, even like to them at the time, but also as an audience, because they hooked up their sound system to a street light, and then like suddenly the whole block goes out of power. It's like, did we do that? Yeah. And then suddenly everybody is just all like, rob all the stores.
Yeah. I read this twice. When I first read it, I didn't make that connection that they hooked their sound system up to the streetlights.
Yeah. Which is like so much ingenuity. I'm like, how do you even do that?
Yeah.
Like city power.
Dude, it's like when you don't have an outlet at home, right? And it's just like, you know what?
I gotta charge my phone.
I meant more outlet in the like expressing yourself sense.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I gotta hook my phone up to a street light.
Well, even just like some of the bigger, the more well-known guys being like, why would you play for free in a basketball court?
Yeah. Which is interesting that then gave rap starting off kind of like this bad connotation. It was like, well, everyone's rapping. It's for free. Like, why? Yeah. Why would I want to do that?
Would I pay for it?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I also found it super interesting that young kids were like professionals.
Oh, yeah, super young.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, they put us to shame.
Yeah.
They can barely talk. So cute.
Yeah. And they're coming up with like these like cool like names. That's one thing that was like also like interesting, but I'm not sure like how I felt about it. The presentation of like some people like, you know, it was like they got their real names with their stage name in quotes like in between, you know. But then like other people is like, yeah, this is just his stage name, and unless you go in Wikipedia, you're not gonna know his real name. Yeah. And so sometimes I was just like, who are you? Like, what? Yeah.
Especially when they change them.
Yeah.
Or even just it was so interesting, you know, it goes from like parties to suddenly they want to be on radio. Yeah. And then they want to be all on vinyl.
Yeah. And that was also like really funny because like, you know, of course, with like a modern kind of sensibility, it's like, well, of course, you know, you'd want to be, you know, on record, you know, similar to, you know, today being on Spotify or whatever, you know. Right. But then it's like, oh yeah, it does kind of make sense from their perspective of like, why would somebody want to hear us basically speaking at a party? Like you're recording us at a party. Like they're not at the party.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So it's like, oh yeah, I guess, you know, it is like obviously they were wrong about that. People did like hearing it at their own homes and stuff, but
pleasantly surprised.
Pleasantly surprised. But yeah.
I'm trying to think, like, what's some more... So what's also interesting is that at the same time this comic kind of details the evolution of the music part of it, there's also, we see kind of the relevance of it in art.
Yeah, graffiti,
yeah.
And then the professional art world.
Mm-hmm, right. I love the guy. He's like, I mean, this Basquiat guy is basically just like graffiti art.
Yeah.
Man, this is Bubkus or whatever.
Or yeah, that one, I mean, I think you're right in remembering I can't
Basquiat,
say Basquiat, but that line was specifically Liechtenstein.
Oh, Liechtenstein.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I really liked, because, like, I mean, so you can tell from the way that this book was published that, and also just the fact that Ed Piskor is obviously a cartoonist, you know, he's, you know, makes comics, but a deep affection for comic books as well as hip hop, and you know, and it was interesting. I think that his specific perspective in how comic books are also related to hip-hop culture, you know, and like, because I mean, that's the thing about Liechtenstein, is that he was the, you know, professional artist who brought comic books into professional art, you know, stealing other people's panels and then blowing them up on canvas and painting over them.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that was like, basically it was like, okay, Liechtenstein is, you know, taking these comic panels, and we are also taking, like, you know, blowing up like characters and stuff that we like and putting them up on the wall.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's like the same thing. And then, you know, you have, like, you know, MC groups like the Fantastic Five, and you're like, oh, I wonder where that came from, you know?
Yeah, honestly, I did not even think of that. That did not cross my mind at all.
Yeah, and the younger kids that are reading, like, you know, X-Men comics and stuff like that.
Yeah. Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the names.
Yeah, they're fun.
Almost every one of them, I'm like, oh, yeah. The Fantastic Romantics just popped in my head. I'm like, oh, I love that.
Yeah. There's some great names in here. Great stage names, great group names. I really liked, though, when later on, like, yeah, at the end of the 70s, I'm gonna say, the Sugarhill record group buys out Grandmaster Flash's group and
the Funky 4+1.
Yeah, the Funky 4+1.
Yeah.
And like the costume change, basically. I'm like, oh, those costumes are kind of sick.
Wait, so I think so there was like the difference between the Sugarhill Gang before Robinson and then after, but then also Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Yeah. And then after. I couldn't tell what he was trying, like, if I'm supposed to take that as like, oh, they got like commercialized.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, I think. You know, I do think that it's like, oh, well, in some ways this is them like going mainstream and selling out a little bit. But also I'm like, I don't know, I think the costumes look cool though, so it works on me.
I don't think the Sugarhill Gang's costumes, I didn't like those. Yeah,
I definitely liked Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five more. But I could see, especially like if I put myself in the time period, I'm like,
I was about to say, I think it's of the time.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, very.
Which in some ways I was like, that's very cool for the time.
Yeah. But yeah, the other one, I'm like, that's cool now too. They just look like just really cool. Yeah. And
then so we get this guy who's like meeting all these like artists like Basquiat or Keith Haring. Yeah. And then I guess there was somebody else that he was then like, hey, let's make a movie.
Yeah. I don't remember that director's name, but
I want to know what movie that was.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll probably come up in the second volume, but I mean, I'm sure you could also just look it up.
That's fair.
Famous hip hop movies.
Yeah. Man, I kind of do not like the other guy that does the graffiti, the white kid, Rick.
Oh no, he's the rock and roller, right?
Oh, I thought
Was
he
he
was
wearing leather?
I thought he was the same guy.
No,
No?
No,
I don't
Rick,
think so.
Okay.
I think Rick was the guy that was rude to his parents. That had his
Yeah.
parents drop him off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's
I
different.
don't know who Rick is. That's. I mean, like I read the comic, but
Mhm.
I'm still like, who is
I'm
this
sure
dude?
at some point there's gonna be like some turnaround where,
It's like this is who Rick is.
yeah,
Yeah.
The Dalai Lama.
well, probably not. But
Didn't he go into? Well, didn't he go into punk rock? Oh, he was part of the Pricks.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's what his group was.
Yeah, his band was called the Pricks. They I think that they start, maybe what the connection is supposed to be is that they do the kind of kayfabe-esque, like, we're, feuding and stuff like that at the show, and his like
Trying to
his-
get attention.
yeah,
Yeah.
trying to get attention. His dad,
Oh, right.
is a security officer, not a police officer, but he pretends to arrest him and stuff like that. And then later on, the rap groups are feuding on the streets, but then friends,
I got you. Yeah. That's so interesting to me. I don't know if interesting is the right word, but it's like I can't, like, they just generate beef just for popularity.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know if it happens so much nowadays, but it still does. And you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be as like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're aware of it and everybody else is aware of it and it's just for fun, then it's fine.
Oh,
But
fair.
if it's like, you're really taking it seriously into heart, then it's
Yeah.
all right, you can chill,
Yeah. I don't think that I would have figured that out.
You would not have chilled.
But yeah, there is a lot of as the years go on, for instance, the band Blondie is influential in bringing rap and hip hop to the mainstream. They basically are just friends with I can't remember. Is it Russell?
Ready?
No, it's Fab Fred
Fab Fred
5, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And basically, yeah, he kind of was like, okay, I got one chance to kind of show these guys how cool hip hop is. So he shows them the best stuff. And then they're pretty enamored with it. They're like, yeah, we need to get this, because they're a punk rock band, and they're like, yeah, hip hop is basically it's punk, but through a different,
That's how we got new metal. I'm kidding. I don't know that.
No.
that's not true.
That's not true.
On this book.
Some punk rocker married a rapper, and there you go.
No. Incorrect. But yeah, that Blondie, had a major influence. They created a song called Rapture that highlighted, other acts and stuff. Like we said too, there was also radio influence. There was the DJ Mr. Magic, yeah. And so he was the gatekeeper of hip hop, basically, because
I think it was when they would go, when he would play your radio or your record on the radio, it's oh, you're legit now.
yeah, exactly. Especially because, so many people were independently producing their own records, or they weren't necessarily part of a record company. Even if, for instance, Sugarhill Gang, it's they weren't part of the RIAA. So it was the, what was the song that they produced?
Rapper's Delight.
Rapper's Delight, thank you.
Yeah.
That should have gone gold, but because they weren't part of the association, it was just print our own certificates and stuff.
We print
they're
our
not gonna
old
know any
gold
better.
records.
Yeah.
So just Make
like
it up.
what Sylvia says, where she's like, "I'm not opening my books to anybody."
Yeah.
Yeah.
uh,
Man, I do not like Sylvia. I'll just say it right now.
I don't know.
I think she's very funny.
Yeah, I liked her in the beginning, but then it was like, yeah, that like kind of shrewd business, sense where it's like, and it's, I mean, it's the same with Grandmaster Flash too, though. He was like, yeah, I'm going to actually like intimidate you with the Casanovas, a gang, into staying with me
Right, yeah.
for a lower pay. It's like that's
fair.
some anti-union stuff, But
That's fair.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that also gave me a little bit of a bad taste for him. I was like, dang, that's kind of messed up. But yeah, I mean, I feel like they do end up, they get their money eventually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, only to impress somebody else.
Yeah.
Because she was trying to
You
get...
imagine dropping your bag of
Yeah.
your suitcase of money, being like, "Hey, oops!"
What?
Down the stairs.
Who were they again? That she was trying to... Like, that
She tried to recruit like everybody, so
Yeah,
I don't
that's
remember who.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't... It was some kind of hip-hop group that she was trying to get signed with Sugarhill Records.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Shwanta.
I was just gonna say something I probably should have said earlier, was that I don't recognize most of the names because I'm not super into like that era. But the moment she was like, and then she made Sugarhill Records, I was like, oh my god.
Because you knew who Sugarhill Records were?
I just recognized the name and like,
okay.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it took me a while to kind of like, I didn't recognize it, but I was like, yeah, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, that sounds familiar. But yeah, I'm just pretty ignorant to this era of hip hop.
Yeah. So they were sprinkling in Rapper's Delight lyrics in the beginning of the book. And it was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so excited. I can't wait to see the Sugarhill Gang.
Yeah. Yeah, it was also really interesting to see, like, I mean, we already said about like the financial disputes, but also just the personal disputes, like, the Rapper's Delight and the Sugarhill Gang, Big Hank, I think.
Big Bank Hank.
Big Bank Hank, thank you. He, like, basically took the lyrics from that other kid.
It wasn't Kaz, was it?
No.
I don't think so.
It's someone else.
It was somebody else who was a fairly big name.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, you're gonna put me on a record, right? You're gonna put me on a record, right? And it's like, yeah, eventually.
Yeah.
Just took his rhymes, and yeah, I don't think we saw the kind of conclusion to that. It's still festering a little bit.
Yeah. I'm sure that I think I saw a video that he did more recently. The guy that gave him the lyrics, and I think he's still a little teed off about it.
Oh yeah. Still ongoing beef.
I think. Don't quote me on that.
Gosh, that's like what?
40 years.
40 years, yeah. Some old beef.
Or maybe he was just explaining what happened. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, though, to get into a little bit of something I didn't quite like about this book, the pacing is a little all over the place.
Oh, yeah?
And I think that is somewhat on purpose. I don't think that Ed Piskor is like totally, unaware of how to pace a book. I think that he's trying to create, a little bit of a frenzied pace. Like, this is happening so fast all at the same time.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But also at the same time, it is
so fast.
Is so fast. It's like,
and like new era start. It does feel more true to life in that you don't realize something is about to get big or like how important this is until it starts to snowball. But yeah, it is a little.
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, new stuff will happen. Like I expect kind of, I guess, or at least how I would have set it up if I were in the same thing is like, you know, one page is going to be one scene, but he'll switch scenes mid-page to very like separate happenings, you know, and it's like,
Gotcha.
whoa, we're here now?
Yeah.
When? Yeah, and then like
Yeah, there's a drawback to that for sure. Like
Mhm.
something important happens and you don't know it's important. You're not paying as much attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have helped if I had like reread it like Tailon did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read half of it and then took a long break and then reread it.
Yeah. Same. I think I got to pay. I got to halfway and then reread it.
That's pretty much where I was too.
Yeah.
More or less.
Because we were trying to get this book read for 3 weeks.
Well, I mean, stuff came
There's
up.
no fault of
Also,
the book.
Yeah.
yeah.
Not the book's fault.
Yeah, not the books.
No.
Although to be fair, reading this today, it was kind of a struggle to get through.
Yeah. So like,
so yeah, it's like, what is it? My main problem is how many names there are, and like it does feel
there's
disorganized,
so
in that people change names, and like sometimes I just have to recognize them based on appearance, I think, and I'm like, oh, who is
Which, you
who?
know, if there were slightly fewer characters, I would admire like giving them different names, but also like the one thing that sets them apart, like one guy's got a hat, and then one guy's got a slightly different hat, and then one's got their hair a certain way. It's like, okay, that's, you know, you give them like you give a character like a specific silhouette so that even if they don't have somebody's name above them, like, you know who that is. But there's too many.
Yeah, it is too much to keep track of. And especially like the second time around reading the first half, I was like, okay, I'm starting to like kind of remember this a little bit more. But then the back half, it was like, and all of these new people showed up to fill the void, and I was like, oh no.
That's true. Where it's
no.
like, so and so had a falling out, so this new person came in. I'm like, no, not another.
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of a headache, but I don't know. Most books I get a headache, I'm like, I obviously hated reading this. But I still liked the book a lot.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And like I think that they could have gotten away with the same amount of people, but like just taking it slower, like we said before, you know,
make it like a 200-page book.
Well, yeah, and also on top of that, because I mean, like, it's like, oh well, just read volume 2, and then that's like, but that's not the same thing, you know. It's not necessarily the amount of pages. It is the pace, and it is also, you know, they don't necessarily go super chronological. In fact, I was like, at the end, they're talking about the 2020 segment about hip hop when it, you know, becomes mainstream, essentially, because it's a news program talks about it on national television. And, you know, they're all like, oh, and there's like all of these people that were like, you know, the precursors to hip hop. And it's like, okay, I understand, you know, not starting with them, but also at the same time, yeah, there's just so much where it's like, oh, well, this was happening, but now we're going to like loop back a little bit, just like a tiny bit. And then like, you know, just like a lot of like very recursive loops, basically.
I gotcha.
Where it was like, well, when is everything happening though? I want dates and names and stuff.
All you need to know is that it's happening now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of a problem I had, where it was like and I guess part of it is the pace, but it's like, I feel like from only in the matter of like, in the matter of like 20 pages, we're going from like a subsection of New York where this like musical movement is going. And then I know it's on SNL and Soul Train and also on the beginning of MTV. It's one of like first like 50 songs that gets put up. Like that doesn't seem like I kind of get it, but on the other hand, not really though.
Yeah, it's very much like a, you know, I can see the intent again, you know, of like, this is like, you know, it's trying to mimic, you know, both the time period and the artistic sensibilities of hip hop itself, you know, being fast and loud and just like, you know, going hard. But it's also like, there is like, you know, just this like, for, you know, historical record, kind of this like sensibility that you're clashing against, where it's like, you know, what people would normally expect is like, okay, we're gonna start in DJ Kool Herc's neighborhood, and we're just gonna start there, and we're gonna branch out, and then we're just gonna follow one path, and then we're gonna say, okay, you know, okay, we have to understand that this stuff is happening at the same time, but don't get lost. It's all right, you know, like very hand-holdy, basically.
Gotcha.
But
can you imagine him ordering the panels where it's like two sides of the?
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. A little timeline, basically,
Gotcha.
but in panel form. That'd be fun. But you know, not his
Might have
style.
done something a little different with these panels.
Yeah,
Can't have that.
Yeah. The only thing that I thought like was more of a negative was like it was a lot of the narrator speaking and a lot less of like the specific actions of the characters, but I don't even know how you would do that. If you're talking about history.
Yeah, they're trying to cover a lot of ground through
Right.
the narrator, right?
Yeah, and I can't say this for sure, but I kind of got the feeling that a lot of this historical record that, you know, that he's drawing off of is probably recounted later, you know? So it's like nobody, like, it's honestly like a little bit surprising that there's any record of like what people said, or basically what people said, you know, instead of just, you know, this is what happened, you know, the broad strokes of stuff.
But don't forget, the guy who laid into the other rapper was like, you can't step up to me. Yeah, that whole thing was recorded.
Yeah, that was actually a really awesome moment.
Yeah,
just like, I mean, yeah, he was just being so arrogant about like, you know, oh, I'm gonna win these competitions. I always win.
Right.
So I'm just gonna see you later. Like, you know, and then he just like laid into him, and then it got recorded and played on the radio.
Oh yeah, like... that was real bad.
Okay, to go back to what you were saying, Tailon, about there being a lot of narration, sometimes it was stacked though, wasn't it? Sometimes there was text in a narration box within the panel, then there was text outside of the panels on top row or bottom row or whatever, like a little row in between the panels. And then there was them talking within the panel.
Yeah.
Like, I would miss a lot of times the text between panels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was very very text heavy, but I did, even though it was like that was difficult to get through, I did actually appreciate kind of something that I just haven't really seen stylistically, which is like there's a very distinct way of showing the caption boxes that are from the narrator's perspective, and then like, you know, sometimes like it's kind of hard for me to explain, but like interlaid caption that, like, you know, is meant to be not the narrator. And there's also like times when like things are given like extra, like basically, okay, yeah, this is how I want to say it. Basically, there is captions sometimes that are emphasized in a way that's like, okay, this is taking outside of time. And then there are captions that's like, this is inside of time.
Oh, okay, yeah, I get you.
And yeah, it's just like, it's really interesting how he, like, you know, he emboldens certain things, like just a thicker line around, and then like also, yeah, using bold for the words too occasionally for like, you know, emphasis, and also putting like red around certain panels too.
I did like those little aside ones.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then I honestly though sometimes I was like, it's kind of like I can tell it's part of your style and it's kind of cool, but I was also like, why do we need like certain things? Like there's one panel, and this is just an example of many, where there's like arrows pointing to money and it says money.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
You drew it right. I know.
No, Cody, you're missing it. You gotta say it like this: money, 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 money.
I guess.
That's how I read that.
Okay, yeah. Maybe that's how it's supposed to be read. But yeah, there's little like, tiny captions, pointing things out, or like, I did appreciate the artistic license and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, okay, this didn't happen, but this is how I imagined it happened, That was good.
Mm. Yeah. I thought it was something that was interesting was like, this is a huge departure for what we were talking about before.
Right.
But, you see Sylvia, and to me, like, Sylvia kind of like is representative of like part of humanity that just like wants to be like, all right, we just want to make this thing, like, take all the fun out of it, right? And like the inspiration, and just like make, be a machine, be a factory. Because she kept going to the Sugarhill and was like, make me a record or make me a song. It's like, all right. I can't work under these conditions. Like that's how I like, and because you see the origin of all of this, it's like it started off with parties. Yeah. People just being like, we just want to have fun, and a positive fun, right? Yeah. And now you're like, I need you to produce all that. And it's like, and then the author kind of notes that near the end, which I can't remember exactly what scene this was, but he basically says that like, oh, some people have taken the fun out of it. Yeah. Yeah. So I thought that was interesting.
That's kind of interesting. Yeah, I didn't totally, just like latch on to that like characterization, I guess, of Sylvia. I don't know. That's interesting. Because that does kind of like, put a different lens kind of on, like we were talking about earlier, like the costume changes that she made to them and stuff like that, or the other groups, not to the Sugarhill Gang. But yeah, it is definitely, I think that the general arc of this book, you could easily say, is the mainstream of hip hop
commercialization.
Commercialization. Yeah. It really is that like, oh, we can make money this way, and we can make money this way, we can make money this way, and then,
even just like the record store owners being like, is it a fluke? And then they sell like 100,000 copies.
And the guy is like selling hundreds of thousands of copies, and he's still like, this could be a fad.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't get it, but you know what? Right. It makes money, so.
What? And then there was like another, I think it was the host of Soul Train or something like that. And it was like, Don Corleone. No, not Don Corleone. I can't remember his name.
Definitely Don Corleone.
I can't remember his name, but he's like, I don't know what this is for an old guy like me, but whatever.
Man, and what's his name? It's not Keith Blow.
Curtis Blow?
Curtis Blow, thank you. I knew it was a K.
Yeah.
Curtis Blow is like he just like put his whole heart and soul into that performance, and he's like, that's all that he got.
Yeah. Right. That's right.
Yeah. Oh man, that
is rough.
Like, I mean, it was, in the end, it got a lot of attention and stuff from like the audience and from the television audience, but just from the host is like, oh man.
You're right.
That's gotta suck.
A lot of it felt like seeing an underdog win in a lot of times, but not all wins.
Yeah, there's definitely people that like, people that kind of like are a little bit more lethal, a little bit more bloodthirsty.
Knew how to capitalize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And other people were like, yeah, we're just having fun. I'm just having fun. And yeah, I think that's like my surprise favorite person was man, I'm messing up his name.
Bambaataa?
Bambaataa.
Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I'll give you that.
Yeah, because, like, you know, I mean, he seems like, you know, like, they present him, like I said at the beginning, like he was, like, part of, like, a gang, you know, that's, like, but then, like, he's all like, yeah, you know, you can have this record, you know, like, and I'll help you out on this competition because they're kind of being unfair and stuff. And I'm like, man, you're such a... And he's like, yeah, I want to keep hip-hop about what it started as, is, like, you know, like, a thing to, like, you know, just for, like, self-expression and stuff like that. Yeah. And
I think one of the store owners, I think, was Paul Winley. Mm-hmm. And he signed Bambaataa to produce a record. And he had been very hesitant to do that. You know, biding his time, as it says. Yeah. And then he produces a record and he's like, I don't like this. Yeah. No, this ain't me. And then he just like leaves and goes back to what they do.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. Which is kind of cool too in itself. I mean, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of groups kind of did that a little bit. You know, there's multiple times where they're like, this didn't work out how I thought. But and part of that was the idea that it was like, well, you can't use other people's music. Yeah, that's true. And they were like, what? Which is, it's funny to me that they could get that far where they actually release a record. It's like, I feel like that should be in like the talking phase where it's like, oh wait, I don't like that. Actually, I'm backing out of this deal, you know?
I'm surprised that they could do that without, like, I don't know. I guess maybe they were credited, like the original artist, but like, you know, I assume that you have to get permission from that artist to use their music.
Yeah, I mean that's why they couldn't do it, though.
Right? But they still produce records that had someone else's music, or was that?
So there were some records that were specifically made for live hip hop that was like, you know, the best breaks, you know, that stuff. And so that was like a very under the table, like, you know, that's why they were all like, sell this behind the counter. You have to ask for it, you know, because it could lead to a lawsuit. But
fair enough, yeah.
What people don't know doesn't hurt them. And that's why, when they were producing stuff to sell, like serious, it was like, you can't use other people. I was like, well, that's all I do. Right. That's all I do.
Do you know who you signed on?
Yeah. And that's, that ends up having, you know, Grandmaster Flash being all upset because he's like, my name's on this, but I'm not doing anything. It's all my MCs just making words to other people's music.
Yeah. Which is just crazy.
Yeah.
And so, like, there's a song by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five called Beat Street. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, is he in that? It sounds like he is, but you know, now I'm questioning it.
Yeah, you have to wonder. I mean, it's whatever is post that the solo album that he, or I don't know if it's an album, but you know, LP, whatever.
Okay, I didn't try to look, but
it's like the 8-minute long track that is just him.
Oh, right.
You know, and he is using other people's music in that, you know. But so far so good as of 1981.
Fair.
Yeah. Which, I mean, kind of spoiler, I guess, for the rest of history, but I think that goes on to be precedent where it's like, you can sample other people's music and get away with it within reason. Right. There will be many, many lawsuits, though.
Yeah, Dr. Dre may have done that. I know Eminem way more, but...
I mean, just like Ice Ice Baby and...
Marky Mark of the Funky Bunch.
Yeah. So much stuff. Yeah.
Wow, I feel like I've insulted myself by mentioning their names.
The less we mention Mark Wahlberg, the better. Yeah. Jake, how did you feel about this comic? I feel like I haven't heard that much from you.
I didn't love it or particularly like it all that much. It was, I mean,
Not
like
interested in music history.
not. I mean, I feel like I want to be, but I don't think this was the right medium. Maybe medium's the wrong word.
Yeah, just the I
like
can,
the presentation, I guess.
yeah, yeah. That's I will say too. I can get behind that a little bit. Whereas like it eventually sold me enough, but it is not very it's not accessible to new people into the history. It's like and that goes back into what we were saying about like all of the people's different names. If you at least know these people's music, you don't know what their lived experience is, but you're like, oh yeah, I've listened to their songs. And it's like, it doesn't, you're like, yeah, I know who that guy's name is. I don't need to like specifically keep track of it. It's like, I've already remembered who that person is, basically.
Yeah. I will say, like, I don't know most of these people. And I would say I had a pleasant experience reading this book. Yeah. But I have heard Rapper's Delight before.
Yeah, and I've heard it too. Yeah. But yeah, there is like, but still, I mean, just the barrage of names, it's like.
So what, for me, right? I don't know why. It's just how I'm wired. But I love, like, Easter eggs, I guess. And so just mentioning somebody's name is enough for me to be like, yes, let's go.
God, you're made for Marvel movies.
So all these different kind of names, particularly ones that I had heard of before, like Big Hank or Big Bang Hank and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Andre Young, Dr. Dre, Carlton Ridenour is Chuck D of Public Enemy, like all those kind of.
See, there we go. Yeah. See, I didn't know that was going to be Chuck D from that makes sense, but I didn't know. And also, speaking of two people named Andre, I was like, well, I know who Dr. Dre is, and you're saying that that's going to be Dr. Dre, but also I'm like, there's this East Coast guy that's named Andre, and I'm like, and then, I'm like, okay, no, different person. I got you, but a little confusing there for a second.
So those where I was like, oh, let's go. And then the Talking Heads, what?
Yeah. I did recognize the white people bands.
I had no idea that the Talking Heads were that old.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. 70s, definitely, like, the start of the punk scene, though. So it sounds like, I mean, this seems to be proving my point a little bit more. That it's like you have a lot more knowledge of a lot more people in this book, even if there's people that you didn't know. It's like I knew way less. And
fair enough.
I feel like, and I don't know, like, part of me is like, well, is it like then to get good access into this book, is it become more familiar with hip hop music first? Or is it like, should it just be written in a way, or could you do it at the same time? Is there like, maybe like a version, where this is like super funded, on Kickstarter or something, and there's like a companion album,
Should have this book be a textbook?
Yeah, right. A textbook.
Yeah, I mean, just based off of my experience, I think you'd probably have to be more interested in hip hop. And because then all these names like mean something, you know? Because like for me, I like what I'll say about this is that it combines two of my favorite subjects, comics and music. Yeah. So it's like, oh yes, let's go.
Nice. Yeah.
So
I like music. I just don't know anything about the people who make it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Passive consumer.
Yeah, I'd say that, I am in that boat, but also I want to know more about the people. But then it's like, if it's inaccessible, then it's inaccessible a little bit. It's like, I want to know more, but I want it to be like, okay, like, hold my hand a little bit.
Fair.
But again, that is not...
this book does like the opposite of hold my hand.
Yeah, yes. It is ready to just jump out and throw you in the deep end, basically. Yeah. It very another thing I'll say about Pisker's writing style, basically, is it is very I guess how I want to say it is what's the word? It's very like kind of vocal, I guess.
Like stream of conscious?
Not stream of conscious, but it is I can't think of what I want to say, but basically he writes in a way that like makes it very much like somebody is telling you a story.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah. Like it is not, I've written this script, and then I'm transferring that into, artwork and panels and stuff. It's like, I am telling you about what has happened or what happened at the time,
Yeah.
Do you mean that it's like more free form in that way?
Yeah, that could be a word to describe it. It is a little bit more free form, a little bit more like, just like, oh yeah, and I thought of this, this thing that happened.
Oh, I forgot, because this had to happen before that.
Yeah, it's not so bad where it's like somebody that's bad at telling a story.
Right, yeah.
But it is a little bit like that. Yeah.
Interesting. So, Tailon, will you be reading more, though? Because I know Cody already said, like, book 2.
I mean, well... I
you
guess...
love music so much.
I know.
Yeah, and it's only going to get more people that you know.
Right. That's what I was just thinking.
The 80s is like when it entered the mainstream. And so
it's only going to get more topical.
Yeah.
Dang, I only know mainstream people. That's,
Yeah.
Don't tell people. Okay.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I might, but it's still not quite like something I would just like want to pick up, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think you know enough? You're like,
No, it's more like, it's fun, but it's still like out of my way, Like,
who would they have to include for you to like pick it up? Is there an artist?
I don't think so, honestly. Like, I don't think so.
Can't be bribed.
Yeah, because I mean, I assume that like. I mean, it's impossible to obviously, especially as it gets more and more popular and more accessible as a genre of music. You can't include everybody, but you can probably include pretty much everybody that you can think of from the 80s to the early 2000s.
You're right.
When radio still ruled.
Yeah.
I think we got to talk too much about the art.
Oh yeah, I would like to talk more about that. But if you have something on deck in particular, Shawento.
What to say other than like it was charming in how it tried to mimic the old styles of comics, like very print style.
Oh yeah. I
thought it was really interesting when it did certain effects. Like when they're trying to show things are really loud, and they'll start doing like
it's almost like
lines overlaid.
Yeah, it's like a 3D effect, like 3D glasses.
It was really effective, at least for me.
Yeah, it's very cool, and I do have this in print, but it is in storage essentially right now, so I was not able to get it. But yeah.
Have you opened it? Does it look cool?
Yeah, it does look cool. That's where I was going. That it's a large size. Like I'm trying to think of how to describe it. Like, you know, it's
Do you have the omnibus?
no, not the omnibus. It's not large in pages. It's large in like height, essentially, of the page. But I'd say it's probably only like half an inch wider, like and we're talking surface area, you know, 2 dimensions, not 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like probably half an inch wider than your normal comic book, but then like, yeah, much taller.
Ooh, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
It kind of makes sense with like how much they fit into a page.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta be at that size.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, very much so. I agree. Yeah, and it is very like, you know, the paper is, you know, has the quality of newsprint. I'm not sure if it's legitimate newsprint or not, but you know, that older, you know, crinkly quality, you know, with the smell of
Yeah. I was surprised when I started reading it because I was like, wait, was this made like back then? Like, I was very confused.
Right, yeah.
But no, that was
tricked
good.
you.
Yeah, absolutely. What I thought was like, it was a cool introduction when it was when he had Hip Hop Family Tree and then Ed Piskor, like that panel just made me think of Everybody Hates Chris. And so it's like also that show is around the 80s.
Yeah, okay,
And
that's
so,
what I was gonna say. I was like, that was the 70s? Because I would just remember one episode where like everybody was like obsessed with the game Asteroids.
Oh yeah,
and so it's like that was the 70s, right?
Yeah, no, the show is set in the 80s.
Okay.
They had a character, a rapper that I think was called Slave or Slave, or Slave a Slave, which I think is
Flava Flav.
Yes.
Yeah. A thinly veiled parody of Flava Flav.
Yes. So yeah, and then there was one episode where Chris is trying to sing a baby to sleep, and he sings Beat Street a little bit, where it's like a jungle out there. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. And then he's like, "What? It was the 80s."
Yeah. That's funny.
So what we're saying is we're nostalgic for a time we weren't alive.
Yeah.
No, but back to the art though. I do really like it, and it is another thing is that it is I think that it falls back into that like kind of Liechtenstein kind of idea, because it's like it is aping an older style, but in a way that it's like it was never ever actually presented that way, you know. Like that's not how old comics really looked, you know. It's
Oh yeah what we think old comics looked like because they've aged or something.
Right. Yeah, and then like, you know, the extra, I mean, again with Liechtenstein, not to say his name too much, but you know, just the kind of use of like the Ben-Day dots and stuff like that. It's like that wasn't.
Yeah, let's not give that Steeler too much credit.
right. Yeah, but obviously this is influenced by that, you know, where it's like.
Yeah, it was just, I was really surprised by the fact that they included that whole storyline with the graffiti and all that. But I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
And of course extremely interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the music's cool, but let's learn about this.
The visual art aspect. Yeah. No, I'm interested to see how that goes on in like later volumes, just in that it's like, oh yeah, okay, hip hop is, you know, in Ed Piskor's view, it is not just a music. Yeah, it's not just a musical genre; it's a cultural movement. You know.
Yeah, because
that makes sense.
He even ends this comic with saying like, anybody can rap, like, kind of like that inspirational last note.
Yeah, which is, you know, actually that's a really interesting takeaway, because like in my head I was thinking that was not meant to deflate necessarily, but it was like, oh, the mainstream still doesn't get it, you know. It's like not anyone can rap. It's like, you know, I mean, another comparison to comics, it's like, oh, anybody can just draw those, right? You know, like it's just cartoons, like that kind of like, you know, a little bit of a sneering to an art form that they don't understand. But I like that interpretation also, though. That it's like anybody can do it, you know, which is also the same for other forms of art. You know, it's like anybody can do it. You just gotta practice and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't typically like this style of art. You know, obviously there's, I don't know, you know, there's like little anatomical errors, but it's such a pleasant style to go with the story that I like it.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah, it does just goes with it. Yeah, I can't say it better than that. Okay. Do you we asked Tailon, but any interest in looking into the other volumes of this or Ed Pisker's other work?
I do think there's some appeal to like learning about the artists I do know. So maybe like later years would be better. But also like I'd be open to rereading this on my own. Because I'm like, I feel like there's a lot here. I just am having trouble taking it all in.
Yeah. You need 3 weeks to read it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very dense. Yeah. I get that. And yeah, I'm kind of interested basically to, I think, I don't know if I actually will, but there is some interest for me to read the later volumes because it's like, I will start to know more and more people and it'll be good because I feel like one mode of connection to the people I don't know in this book is that they are going to be, you know, it's a family tree. It's a hip-hop family tree. So they are going to be connected to the people I do know.
Yeah.
And then it's going to be like, oh, okay, well, now I see, you know, why you're important to at least, you know, my musical interests. Yeah. So I feel like that could be, you know, one way that this book is improved for myself, you know, and of course, like, just to clarify, you know, this is personal opinion, not like critical opinion. You know, it's just like in that way it doesn't work for me at the moment, and so like maybe it could be improved by just knowing more. And then also on top of that, I did, while I was reading this, I knew that I couldn't just like look up every single song that they ever mentioned, but I was like, you know what, I'm gonna listen to the songs that were put on that first record that was like the best breaks.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. It was kind of fun. I was like, yeah, there's some neat songs. I think there was one dud where I was like, no. But yeah. So anyway, that was long story short for me. I might be interested in reading more of this. You, Jake?
Probably not. I'm not sure if it's the author or the subject matter, but it just didn't click for me this week. I really didn't like this.
Fair. Yeah. I will say also, I didn't mention it earlier in the episode, Pisker has also done work for Marvel. He did a similar large print or large sized illustrated X-Men Grand Design, which goes through the history of X-Men.
Interesting. That's why it was in the comic. I got you.
Only reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think he's also done, it doesn't say it on his Wikipedia page, but I believe he's done a similar thing for Fantastic Four as well. He, in 2020, he started serializing a graphic novel called Red Room on his Patreon page. That one I've seen is like very like horror focused. It's like very like gory, kind of gross stuff, but you know, just scares. So yeah, that's his other work basically.
Do you know what's crazy? Me and Ed Pisker share a birthday.
Oh.
That is cool.
Happy not birthday to him.
Yeah. Only a 1 in 365.25 chance.
Also, so it looked like he was born in the 60s. And so he would have been maybe paying attention when this was happening?
In the 80s.
Right.
1982. You just said the 60s.
Oh, wow. Never mind. Sorry. He is not born in the 60s.
Yeah.
He's born in the 80s.
Goodness gracious.
My bad.
But not that long ago. Like, I mean, obviously, he has to, like, grow to be conscious and, you know, want to engage with art and stuff like that. But, you know, even in his teen years, if that was, like, in the 90s, that's not that many years back to kind of, you know, it's a little bit more accessible, probably.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. If there's no other last remaining thoughts about this, I think that's all we have for the show. Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening. This has been our coverage of Hip Hop Family Tree, Volume 1 by Ed Pisker. And this has been the Comic Panel. I'm Cody.
I'm Tailon.
I'm Jacob.
I'm Shawenta.
And we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to this channel as it helps us out on the YouTube algorithms and getting us seen by more and more people. You can also reach out to us with any thoughts you have on the things we talk about on Twitter at TheComicPanel1 and on Instagram and Facebook at TheComicPanel. Also, if you want to leave a comment, please do. Let us continue the conversation.